Hi, this is Soren with Wisdom 2.0. I'm excited to introduce this next interview, which is with John Kabat Zinn and Anderson Cooper. Many of you probably know of Anderson Cooper. He's a host at CNN and also a journalist. John Kabat Zinn is a mindfulness teacher and has written many books on applying mindfulness and meditation in daily life. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Has anything surprised you or did you just go in with no expectations of what it was going to be?
I think because I waited so long that I don't feel, first of all, I also have a baby nurse who helps particularly at night. So that, makes it a heck of a lot easier. So, but I don't know that anything really surprised. So what surprises me is just the wonderment of it and that I can kind of lose myself for hours just staring at him. I guess I didn't really expect. I'd sort of read that babies are kind of boring for the first couple of months because they don't really do anything. But I actually,
oh God,
I'm not bored at all. In fact, if anything, my partner, I guess I'd call him Benjamin, who I'm raising Wyatt with, he's co-parenting. He keeps saying that he wants to keep Wyatt the size he is now, like a little bonsai tree, and that we need to somehow just keep him from growing. But I just think it's an extraordinary time. And I was working this weekend for 2 days and I was away and I just I felt terrible that I'd missed 2 days because he grew and changed. And
right. They changed so fast at that time. And that's pretty much the way it always is, even when they're 6, 7, 8, 20, 40. Yeah. It's always changing.
My son just turned 18 a week ago. And it's I remember I remember those early days. So it's really great that you're taking the time with him that you need.
Yeah, it's been nice. I'm able to work from home, been doing my show from home. And so it's, And also in the strain, the time of COVID, it's actually, it just makes everything outside seem, it's a great escape to just kind of escape into the eyes of this little boy.
Yeah, it's kind of a reality reminder,
it is.
What's really important.
Yeah.
So you can actually do your CNN news show from home. Is that everybody's doing that now?
Right now is my library, and you probably can't see on this, but there's a.
But you've got that camera and everything.
Set up, and there's a plasma monitor behind me. It looks like it's the platform.
Yeah, nobody's ever going to go back to work after this.
I know. Well, I think there's going to be, we'll see what kind of changes there are throughout, a lot of people's workplaces. But I think it's definitely makes you realize what you can, how little you need in some cases, and in some cases how much you need from others.
Yeah. And you can still make the time. It's pretty amazing. You can still make the time for meditation practice in the morning with everything that you do and a newborn, even with help. It's hard.
Yeah, it's interesting. I sort of went through a patch where I'd kind of fallen away from a daily 30-minute or 40-minute or even several times a day, and I was sort of reduced to 2-minute meditations in the back of a car going from one place to another, which were interesting and helpful to me to at least sort of be present in a car, feeling the wind coming through the window, things like that, and not working on multiple devices and trying to, but there's been, I think I've had a recent realization, just the obvious realization, which is that's not really enough to, it's a nice addition that you can make sort of daily things or find meditative moments, daily things. But I don't know, it's really just been brought home to me that all the strategies that I've used to get to wherever I am in life and my career and stuff like that, there are strategies which have been helpful, I thought, to propelling myself forward through situations and getting myself here. I've come to realize that at age 53, which I just turned, they are not strategies for longevity, and they're not strategies for happiness or a sense of connectedness or being present in the life of my son. And so I've sort of been reminded, not only by myself, but also by a lot of people in my life, and even like doctors who are prescribing the number one thing they've been, like I have two doctors who the number one thing they've been prescribing is meditation, and not knowing that I had any interest in it or
no kidding,
limited experience with it. Literally two of them, different people without contact with each other, both said this is like top of the list of what you need to do. And it's not just because it's a good thing to do, like this will prolong your life, like this will prolong your brain. It will it will help your brain. You know, there's all these studies now. There was a study I think out last week or 2 weeks ago, which, you know, it's not necessarily anything new, but it was kind of new to me, that repetitive negative thinking actually destroys your brain. Like it builds plaque, and it actually, you know, and for all, you know, for all of us as a society, there's this wave of Alzheimer's coming. I mean, it's already here, but there's a wave of people who are going to be afflicted with this. And I certainly hope I'm not one of them, but I am now. I take it much more seriously and view it not just as it's a nice thing to do, but as, you know, working out, just like I go to try to run every day or work out every day. I actually view it as my brain as a, you know, as a thing that needs to, like, I eat now for brain stuff. And again, it's not anything that I've been told myself individually, like you know, that I'm in trouble for, but I very well may be. And I think the brain, I already feel the difference in even like changing my diet for brain food and things like that.
That's awesome. I mean, you know.
And John, you weren't the one who talked to his doctors, were you?
No, well, no, because every time that I've mentioned, I was like, oh, well, you know, it's funny you say that, because I actually, you know, I've done Zinn, I've you know, I did a story about him, and I really am a wholehearted believer in this. And so they're like, great, okay, so do it. Like, why aren't you on top of this? So, but it's interesting to me how that was the first thing that every doctor I talked to brought up.
That's a really phenomenal diagnostic in itself, because you know, that would not have happened even 10 years ago. The world of medicine is really changing and understanding things about the power of driving neuroplasticity in positive directions, which is just what you're talking about, by regular meditation practice. And you're right, it's supported in the literature in ways that really make it almost axiomatic that this is something that really everybody needs to pay attention to and adopt in one way or another.
Yeah. Well,
and that's so different from in the past. I mean, it's just revolutionary.
When I saw that study, I mean, it really was a wake-up call to me, because repetitive negative thinking is my specialty, and I don't have a degree in it, but I have a, you know, life experience with it from the time I was very little. And so it has helped me to, you know, to constantly be in a crouched position, ready for whatever comes. And I often call myself a catastrophist, because I want to be, my mom was the great optimist, and but she was only able to be optimistic because I was there as the catastrophist, preparing for bad things that I felt were never going to happen. And all of that prepares you maybe for a career that I have, and makes you work constantly and maybe very effectively, but it's a short-term solution. It's not a long-term, you know, that's not a way to live. And I think getting out of that repetitive thinking is like my number one priority right now. And meditation is really the only way to do it. I mean, I've talked to, you know, it just seems like it's the path forward.
Wow, so that's a big change in your life over the past whatever number of years.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's also interesting, because I may have talked to you about this at some point, that my dad died when I was 10 and he was 50. And at the time I thought that was very old. And then of course, you know, I think when you lose a parent as a child, it obviously shapes the trajectory of your life and stuff. But I always assumed I would be dead at 50 because my dad died at 50. And so my whole plan was just
get to 50,
do a lot of stuff, and, you know, live a really full life, And then you die at 50. Okay, you know, you die at 50, but you've lived a really full and interesting life and done a lot of things. Then the realization that, oh my, you know, I passed 50 and I realize, oh, I'm actually not going to die at 50. And my doctors tell me, you know, I'm relatively healthy. And so I suddenly am now in this position of thinking like, well, you know, I have no plan. Like I had a plan to 50 and now there's no plan. And so it's an exciting thing. And certainly Wyatt is now, you know, helping figure out what the plan will be and determining it. But,
He is the plan, partly, I'm sure.
yeah, he is.
Yeah. And
John,
in
do
a
you want to say
sense,
something about negative thinking and mindfulness, how those relate, or is it seem important?
are you asking me?
Yeah.
There's a whole field that has to do with chronic anxiety and chronic depression. And these, it turns out, are to a very large degree diseases of thought regulation. And so when you get into thinking particular kinds of thoughts without being aware that you're thinking those kinds of thoughts, it drives a certain kind of reality. And then you get stuck in that reality. Then you wind up with either panic attacks on the one hand, or what's called depressive rumination that drives you down into like darkness and depression.
I'm familiar with that.
There's a huge amount of medical literature and really fairly rigorous studies that suggest that you don't have to replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, that was kind of like the old-fashioned, the power of positive thinking and so forth. But dealing with difficult thoughts with other thoughts is actually a zero-sum game. But when you actually put the welcome mat out for your thoughts and then you identify them as thoughts rather than as the reality, they kind of it's like touching a soap bubble. The Tibetans would say it self-liberates. You don't have to do anything. The awareness itself sees what's going on, and then you're free from that. You don't have to pursue it. And the more you practice mindfulness and stay in the present moment and see thoughts as thoughts and emotions as emotions and sensations in your body as sensations, the more they don't drive your moment-to-moment experience, because what's really going on is awareness itself. And then you have like degrees of freedom you didn't even believe you had. And I did very touched by what you say, Anderson, about you know, having the game plan sort of end at age 52 or 53, because that gives you like kind of clear sailing from there on without, in some sense, a plan. So that means you can let life become your teacher, and Wyatt and everything else that's arising that's meaningful really become your teacher. And that's really what mindfulness is all about, is letting life be the curriculum and being, in some sense, both, you know, learning how to move with the wind in various ways, but also have your hand on the tiller.
I love the idea. I mean, it's such a liberating idea of, you know, for anybody who has had experience with any form of depression or negative thinking or the repetitive negative thoughts, you know, being told to like, you know, think positively, there's nothing worse. I mean, it's just, you know, like, it's like saying smile more, you know, and it's,
or relax even.
Yeah, I mean, it always reminds me. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Marge Simpson is giving parental advice to Lisa Simpson, and her advice is just to put a smile on her face and push all her feelings deep down inside, which of course is the last thing, you know. But I think it's so important. You know, I remember two things that you've said during meditation sessions. One, which I was actually listening to this morning on an app of yours, just sort of, you know, if you have. If your leg is asleep or you're sitting in a painful position, you know, you can adjust, but you can also kind of, I believe your phrasing was soften into it, which I think is kind of a really interesting way to think about something that painful that's happening, sort of soften into it, whether it's a physical pain or else. And the other image that I know that I remember you've used is, you know, meditating, it's looking at the flow of thoughts, like you're standing behind a waterfall, and you're looking out through the water, and you're seeing them. You're not ignoring them. They're there. They come. They go. And you watch them, sort of the stream of them come and go, and that there's a certain liberation in that, and that's I think really important.
Yeah, it's like, and in some sense, the encapsulated version of that is don't take personally what's not really personal.
Hmm.
But we personalize everything that goes through our head, and it all becomes about me and my future and my stress and my pain. And
I did a story recently on for 60 Minutes on psilocybin and the research that's being done at Johns Hopkins, Roland
yeah,
Griffiths, and a lot of I don't know if I think you know Roland, but
I don't know Roland, but
okay.
I know Michael Pollan, who
Right,
wrote
of
the
course,
most
yeah.
recent
So
book.
I also interviewed Michael
Yeah,
for the piece as well. And one of the things Michael was saying, Roland Griffiths actually was a big a big admirer of meditation and himself meditates, and it was through meditation that he actually started to get interested in psilocybin and what's possible with the mind. But one of the things that Michael Pollan said in the interview, which has really stayed with me, was that I guess in with psilocybin, there's a thing called the default mode network in your brain, and that psilocybin and other psychedelics quiets the default mode network, so that the regular pathways that are connecting don't, but other parts of your brain which don't normally communicate connect in ways, and that it sort of quiets the voice in your head. And Michael Pollan was saying, we all think that voice is us,
right.
and we all think the voice in our head is who we are, but what if that's actually just one aspect of who we are? What if that's not who we are? And that idea was kind of mind-blowing to me, and not only wanted me to, try a massive dose of psilocybin at Johns Hopkins, but
Hmm.
just meditate more and sort of understand that more. Because that idea of, oh, wait, I'm not a slave to these, whether it's negative thinking or whatever it is in our head.
That's why they actually use the word liberation associated with meditation practice, because you are a slave when you don't know that there's another option. So as soon as you know that there's another option, you're no longer imprisoned by your own sort of belief in the phantasmagoria that goes, under the guise of, putting ourselves at the center of the universe and then building up narratives of one kind or another. And that's what the default mode network does. And I know when you visited Judd Brewer, because it's on film and I saw it, my colleague Judd at UMass Medical Center when he was there, that, I think you asked him about that whole connection between the psilocybin experience and the meditative experience. And it turns out, I think that they both affect that default mode network. And what mindfulness does, in my view, although I don't think the science is there yet to confirm it, but that it actually allows us to default to present moment wakefulness or mindfulness and heartfulness, as opposed to default to the story of me, starring me in my role as you know, the the sufferer of the world, or the most unsuccessful person, or the least worthy person, or whatever the sort of verbal narrative is that drives us into depression or anxiety. And one of the benefits of a conversation like this, and us having talking in this way, is that it's so universal that people just actually believe that their thoughts are the reality.
Mm.
And then we're seeing it played out in the news, because, the reality is now up for grabs. I mean, what
Yeah.
anybody says is, or tweets, or, sort of puts out on social media, then becomes reality for millions of people without any kind of reflection as to whether it has any veridicality or truth
Mm.
to it at all.
One of the things that President Trump said yesterday, um, which he said before, but it made, again, I think it's important to not normalize this stuff and to point out, okay, yes, he may have said this before. It's still as just ridiculous as it was when he first said it, which was that the problem on COVID, the problem is, we're the best. We as a country are testing better than anyone else in the world, and that's why we have more cases. And if we stop testing, we won't have those cases, which is
insane.
Orwellian in its brilliance. I mean, yes, technically, I guess if you don't test, you won't know that you have cases, but you will still have cases. The tree that falls in the forest, you may not be there, but it still does fall.
Well, that is literally and metaphorically keeping them honest, only there's no keeping him honest because there's no understanding of what honesty really is. And if it were just him, it wouldn't be a problem necessarily, even though he is the president of the United States. But there's a certain fungibility now to actually what is believable. And a lot of people,
totally,
I think, are just believing things that are so beyond the nature of fact or actuality that even in terms of like the pandemic, the understanding of risk and how to modulate that in a very complex time when we all want to be out in the street protesting, so to speak, but also not want to die as a result of doing that. It's a major challenge for the society to, in some sense, liberate itself, wake up. I mean, the same kind of language that was used by the founders of the country, that this is about freedom, but you can't have outer freedom unless you have the inner freedom to not be caught by your own imprisoning tendencies around falsehoods or narratives that are so untrue that they're toxic to yourself and other people.
Yeah. Well, and I also think
I don't know how you do it from day to day, to tell you the truth. I mean, just reporting on the news. I mean, I wonder how you actually do it from day to day because it's such madness.